Happy to be here. I'm Jason Shaw, physical therapist. I've been practicing for 26 years. My background in physical therapy is primarily neurologic physical therapy. So I've worked with a lot of patients who have stroke, traumatic brain injury, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, Guillain-Barré syndrome, just a huge array of people with different types of neurologic deficits. Um, Yeah, I have been really interested in this particular adaptive guitar, as I like to refer to it. Brett Baker has been amazing, the inventor of this guitar. His vision for what this guitar could provide individuals who have disabilities, who have deficits, I think is pretty remarkable. And he's been extremely open-minded in how the guitar can be used in different capacities. So as we have kind of worked together with some of our patients here, he's constantly trying to learn different ways to make the guitar more functional, more of a help, more of a tool, more of an instrument for our patients. So he's just been a joy to work with. One of our patients in particular, Jim, has been I think it's been life-changing for Jim. He has struggled at times after his stroke, as a lot of people do, having not been able to do a lot of the things that he has loved to do in the past. And so being able to play the guitar and learn how to make music and sound has just been such a love for Jim. When he comes into his therapy sessions, he's excited to be here. The entire session, he could play the guitar the entire session, and this is with his arm that was affected from his stroke quite severely, and he's had very limited use of that arm. In fact, when he first started on the guitar, it was kind of interesting because he had a lot of difficulty even sliding the guitar along the arm, sliding to the different chords. But with time, he's developed the ability to hit the notes and the chords that are at the far end of the arm of the guitar, and it's been quite remarkable. I think first and foremost, it's something that he's passionate about. And for a lot of people, including myself, I don't consider myself to be a musician by any means, but there's something about music, I think, that brings out certain sentiments and passion for movement, for doing, for singing along with it. And this has been, I think, remarkable for Jim, and I think in some ways life-changing. There's other things that we've looked at as well, too. As a therapist, we're always trying to think of ways to help what we do in therapy be useful for other activities. So first and foremost for Jim, our goal has been, and for the other people, to kind of find some kind of passion in playing music, being able to make music. But we've also looked at the possibility that this guitar could help people to be able to move, and that movement could carry over into other activities. The way you have to move the guitar to produce the sound requires that the arm move in particular directions that are uncharacteristic of some of the stereotypical movements that we see with people after a stroke. And so that's where I think it can be very useful. Of course, it doesn't really challenge someone in all movements of the arm, and that's never the intent of a particular instrument. But I think it moves them enough out of some of the stereotypical movements where people tend to be quite bound after a stroke, to where potentially they could develop more skill. Jim in particular has been great to work with because he's been so open-minded to the concept of variability with using the guitar. And so our intent in working with Brett has never been that he does the same thing over and over and over again. The intent is that he varies his movements slightly. And that's, as a therapist, that's a key principle of motor learning. If you want to be able to move in your environment and adapt to your environment and do different types of things, you don't want to just do the same thing over and over again. So it's a little bit tricky with a guitar because certainly there is some specificity to playing a guitar and moving it in a certain way. But we've tried to adjust the height of the table that he's sitting on, or to lower the table of the guitar that it's resting on. We'll have him turn his hand just kind of slightly, just slight motions like that, the angle, how close he is to it. All of those things add variability in his practice, in his training. And the intent is that from playing the guitar, that variability will carry over into other tasks. Of course, this is something that needs to be studied, and it's still in its infancy right now, but I think there are great prospects for that.
If you were going to put together a study, how many of these instruments would you personally like to have in the perfect world?
Oh, we take all we could get, of course, so that I guess it depends on how the study were to be designed. Again, it's still in its infancy. If people were to come to us and work with us every time, then we could probably get by with a fewer number of guitars, maybe 5, maybe 10 guitars. But if this were a much larger study and we looked at not only their practice and training on the guitar during the therapy time, but also outside of therapy time, and how they practice on their own, which I think is a key component of this, then you'd have one for every participant in the study, and so you might need upwards of 30, and so it just depends on the study design. One thing that I think is really important about this guitar is the fact that it focuses, it's centralized on the principle of an external attentional focus, where the individual's focus is not so much on the mechanics of their movement and the ins and outs of the movement, but it's on the outcome of the movement. And research has shown that when people focus on something external or outside of their own body, then they learn better, the retention is much better. And so it's a great tool, because his focus is not so much on, okay, I need to bend my arm to this degree or in this particular motion. Certainly there are times when we will cue him to keep his elbow in and things of that nature. That's normal. But much of his focus is primarily on, I need to move this lever to a certain point on the arm of the guitar, and when I reach that point, it produces the sound that I want. And if I don't get there, it makes the wrong sound. It's flat, sharp, or something like that. So his focus is on producing the right outcome. And boy, as far as movement training, motor training, you can't beat that as being your driving stimulus. Also, I think that the saliency, as I mentioned before, the passion behind doing something that an individual perceives as being meaningful can have such great power in learning. And in particular, well, all types of learning, in this case, movement learning. If you're doing something that's fun, that's engaging, that captures your interest, then the ability to continue and participate in that activity and to really be fully engaged in all areas of the brain, focused and in the learning process is such a powerful tool to have that saliency or meaning behind something. You can do exercises and repetitions and this and that, and it may not have very much meaning. But to participate in something that is engaging is a powerful tool for learning.